have 5:30. I will call the work session to order. Could the clerk please call the roll? Oh, Brenda, you're on mute, I think. Doesn't look like you're on mute, but we can't hear you.
Not on mute.
Okay, now I can hear you.
Okay. I'll yell. Councilmember Henry.
Present.
Councilmember Mock.
Present.
Councilmember Sayer.
Present.
Councilmember McKnight.
Present.
Mayor Johnson.
Present. Thank you. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for tuning into tonight's work session. Work sessions are conducted to provide the City Council with introductory information, opportunities to provide staff guidance, and facilitate initial conversations on a topic. No votes are taken. As such, there's not an opportunity provided for members of the community to provide comments or ask questions during a work session. Those interested in providing comments to the City Council on any city-related topic are encouraged to participate in community comment during the regular meeting via Zoom that begins at 7 o'clock. More information related to joining the Zoom can be found by clicking on the meeting agenda, which is found on our website. All right, up first on our agenda for this evening is the 2021-2022 Strategic Plan, the Draft Action Plan. Mr. Merrick?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Can everyone see my screen here?
Yep.
Yep, let's see it.
So, the department has and myself put together this draft action plan for the City Council to consider at the work session tonight. And it's a little bit different than what we've employed in the past, where there have been times in past strategic planning efforts where the action plan was created kind of during the strategic planning session, and we intentionally took it up just because we thought we were rushing kind of as a group to come up with plans. And so what we have done is taken kind of the summary that's included in your packet and put together ideas or potential action steps, as we're calling them, and then really asking the council to kind of narrow down these action steps as a priority or priorities within each of the umbrellas of strategic planning initiatives, or what we're calling them. And then also you'll notice at the end of each of our action step ideas, we've labeled the last one an opportunity for council members to offer action plan ideas. So if there's something that you just think isn't quite hitting a chord with what was discussed during the strategic planning exercise, that's an opportunity for you to share that with the council and discuss. And so I was planning on just running through each of the buckets of community engagement, community development, downtown development, infrastructure, and the last one, one by one, organizational development, one by one, kind of going through, for example, communications and engagement 1 through 9, and then having the council have a discussion about those. Is that acceptable to the council? Is that an okay method? Okay, so I'll start here. So related to communications and engagement, number one would be to engage a marketing printing company to prepare a professional grade welcome guide for new residents. So what we have now is, I think it's probably close to 10 pages. It's been updated several times in the last 10 years, but it's essentially it's been worked on by staff in a Word document. It's our first connection with new residents. There could be an opportunity to take that, kind of repackage it with some high impact graphics and messaging, and turn that into something else. Number two, seek out a training opportunity for the council and department heads. It could be anybody really, but related to bias training, equity, inclusion, education. I know the league has some models, but that involve GEAR, which is kind of a really dedicated and I would say more challenging commitment as it relates to time. The council might want to consider before stepping into that commitment to do maybe some 1 hour, 2 hour trainings and kind of educate ourselves before making a commitment and involving the community in general. Another idea is to remove gender pronouns in the city code and advertise accommodation availability for meetings. So whether it's sign language or if another language needs to be spoken for a meeting, to provide translation. I believe we're required, Larry might need to help me out on this, but I believe we're required to provide that kind of accommodation already. But it maybe might be a condition of just trying to be more proactive and transparent about that service. Is that a requirement, Larry, if someone needed that type of service?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Number 4, hold a work session to discuss large event regulations, possible permitting, and review the pros and cons of regulations. So we've discussed at the work session about how we have events, whether it be steamboat days. In the past, we've had the Jeep, I forgot what it was called, but it was a Jeep function. And there's little to no city regulation for those events, and that could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing, but just wanted to have a conversation. If the council wanted to have more events, what does that look like? It's easier to kind of regulate informally when you do 1 or 2 events a year. It's harder when you have an event every month and just making sure expectations are met. Post-COVID, engage the Chaska recreation staff to facilitate events that would serve and welcome and gather residents in specific neighborhoods. So kind of a smaller scale community event. Sometimes cities will call it Explore Your Parks, but a way for neighbors to meet neighbors outside of maybe the annual Night to Unite, or I forgot what it used to be called, but the Night to Unite event in August or September. Develop a communications policy related to coordinating and managing events, resident engagement, media requests, and so on. We have a very loose policy as it relates to that, but I think as we have seen with some of our recent projects, especially with the Jonathan Carver Parkway, but as we move into the levee and getting a larger city by population, coordinating communication and projects and media requests is going to be a really important role. Not that it isn't now, but the more people that you have participating in those communications, the higher there is of a risk to have miscommunication or expectations unfulfilled. Number 7, prepare an analysis, review costs and strategy for a media communications specialist. So options can include continued consultant work, part-time staff, or collaboration with another agency, i.e. city, county, etc. 8, engage an independent party to perform an analysis on the city's water operation, which would include water quality, service, marketing, costs, etc. Use the findings to develop an action plan to address any concerns identified in the plan. So this gets at some of the feedback that we've received through other media platforms related to brown water, the cost of water, and kind of identifying a narrative that there isn't maybe good value or good quality as it relates to the city's water system and how to address that. So, and then number 9 is council member space for your own ideas. So with that, I'll throw it back to the mayor for discussion on the communications and engagement initiative.
All right, I'm trying to make the box a little bigger here so we can see everybody. Who wants to start us off? I have some thoughts. So maybe I'll go first. Brent, for number 8, engaging an independent party to perform an analysis of the city's water operation. I think I recognize that that's a direct response to the community survey and some of the responses that we got on there. But I'm not sure that there is anything that we can do to go after the folks who on social media, and then don't follow up with the city, complain about their water quality, color, taste, smell. So I just worry about putting money into something like that where it's not necessarily a fight that we can win. We know, there are some real, some mandated metrics and testing that the water system goes through, and we know that our water passes, if not surpasses, in all of those categories, and that it's safe and good to drink. But I'm struggling with that one just a little bit. That's my thoughts. I don't know that I had anything extra to add to this slide.
Courtney, I could follow up with that same question. So I'm sorry, Brian, could you put that back on the screen so we can see that? I just want to reiterate the wording correctly. So we're looking at, so engaging an independent party to perform the analysis. Like Courtney said, we do have those things already set in place where our water is tested and we know what we have going on. Can you maybe let us know a little bit more in more detail what that might mean, if you flesh that out at all? Who would that be, or what kind of a company would do something like that we don't already have being done?
Right, I don't know. I mean, that's what we'd have to kind of figure out. I would add, so my intent of this exercise is for the council to coalesce around for example, 4 priorities. So if you don't like something,
Okay.
it might be better for you to advocate for the 4, for example, that you think are really good, rather as opposed to saying the ones that you don't like. I mean, we can certainly have this discussion, but other than what I've talked about, I don't know who would do it. It's more of a, I would say maybe a dream scenario where it's like, is there a way to address everyone's concerns that we've heard about water? I know we have our current team, with Chad and myself and the Bolton and Mink folks, but there's still a gap, and so to try to have somebody help find that gap. I don't know who would provide that level of service, but it's a response to kind of what I heard or what we heard during the session and the community survey.
Okay, so for myself, I think that we do a lot of communication already about water, and it's not always what everyone likes to hear, but I do feel that we've put out many different things, and we do it a number of times a year that, rates compared to this or equality compared to this actually does come out. I agree with Courtney when she says that if people are keyboard warring on social media and they're not talking to the city about it, that possibly, they're just complaining. They're not asking for the actual, the result. So I guess 8 to me is probably not as important as some of the other ones.
Go ahead, Joy.
I guess I would like to propose a modification to number 8. This was something that I specifically requested that we respond to in the survey. And I guess I'm not sure that we need to engage an independent party to analyze our operation, including water quality, because I agree with the comments that we already have certain testing that we do, and we do communicate those results. More of what I would like to see is a little bit more homeowner education, because I'm not sure that that has been addressed, and that seems to be the root of many of the water complaints. People don't know how to troubleshoot their water softener or understand if a water problem is the city's or their water softener or something else, and some more education around water within your home and how to understand, what the city does versus what happens in your home. And I believe that Chad Shell kind of agreed with me that that would probably help. And I know we try to use the newsletter for some of those things, so I don't know. I guess that would be my proposed modification to 8, but if I were going to give priorities to the items listed here, I would certainly put 4, 5, and 7 as my top priorities on the list, and maybe it's part of that media communications specialist number 7 to help us figure out how to better educate homeowners related to water. That's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Troy. Glenn?
Well, not to flush anything out, but, as far as, I mean, with water treatment facility being expanded and everything, people are always gonna have questions about, the cost and what's really going on with the water. I would like to keep it on the table. I like the idea of educating homeowners, but sometimes homeowners know everything and you can't teach them anything about what we are doing at the city. But I do like the fact that they will be asking questions after the water treatment facility is back up online and what we did to expand the water's volume and for in the future where we're going to be with that water. So I want to keep that open so we can have somebody that can say, well, this is what the city did. If you see your rates or whatever, I think marketing is going to be a key as to why we did what we did and the results that we're looking for. And I want to keep that viable on the table for not only homeowner education, but just to let them know that it is a genuine concern that we've had and that we have addressed, and it's all being implemented right now. So I don't want it to disappear from the table.
Well,
As far as, yeah?
if I could kind of, pardon the pun, but we'll repackage kind of what I think I hear you saying, Joy, and Christy, and Courtney today. I kind of feel like I'm hearing like a want for like an annual water report, so that
Sure.
we talk about the services we provide and maybe some education, but we package it in a kind of using the same material, the same look that we have been with our other professional kind of grade stuff. What we've done in the past is I've worked on inserting articles in the newsletter, but they're probably not substantive enough to kind of scratch the itch that maybe we're having. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
I think if we get a little bit more in depth than just once a year, I think that might go a long ways. Because people are wondering why we had to do anything with the water treatment facility to begin with. And from all the water concerns that we were getting, I feel that we've addressed the concerns of everybody in town. So in doing so and expanding our service, they want to know, what's the results, what it used to be, where we're at, where we're headed with things.
I can get on board with that. I think for me, engaging the independent party to perform the analysis was probably the sticking point for me.
Yep.
I think the good thing that we've kind of got, that we've flushed out here, Glenn, is that we need to put more information out in a more detailed and a more in-depth fashion to the residents, rather than basically kind of doubling up on work and testing that's already being done.
Yep.
So, first of all, my apologies for getting us started off on the wrong foot. Let's try to narrow down, like Brent said, the four that we do like. But in my mind, I see water report is like this thick and boring. So I'm not sure that that's necessarily what I'm saying. I think, to Joy's point, I think that number 7 could accomplish this and a lot more by looking into hiring some kind of communications help, whatever that looks like, because I think that would be a person who could be dedicated to telling our community's story, be it the reason for an expansion to our water treatment plant, or maybe working on some kind of awards and recognition strategy. I know that there's, the best tasting water awards occasionally that I've seen somebody get recognition for in our area. So that kind of thing, but also telling stories about other things. I think, Brent, my top priorities would be 2, 3, 4, and 7, with really recognizing just how much we could put under that umbrella of a communications person. Laura, you haven't had a chance yet. Why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I'm pretty aligned with what Courtney and Joy had said as far as listing the priorities. One question, are they ranked right now in priority, or this is just kind of where they fell together in the notes?
Correct. This is how they fell together in the notes.
Okay, how they trickled in. I know we kind of want to slow down the stream here on this number 8, but
You're really putting it on right now.
Yeah, for 8, that did kind of scare me. That independent party just sounds expensive. But 2 things. The second sentence, I don't want to lose sight of addressing concerns identified. We think we know what the concerns are, but let's just make sure we don't have any blind spots, and just kind of really double check that. And then the other thing was, I know that we had a lot of presentations in work sessions on how we got to the point of needing to expand. So I wonder if some of this analysis and just kind of already having independent parties look at our city waters operation, if some of that's maybe been done, but we just haven't had a concise way to communicate it to residents. If we can have to recycle some of that research maybe. And the only other thing for the number 1 about engaging a marketing printing company, I don't want to assume new resident is homeowner and renters. I think it's important that we capture everyone. Is that the case?
We get the welcome packet out to anyone who starts a new utility account.
Okay.
So we could certainly, like with Carver Ridge and Carver Crossing, we could certainly engage. It might be a little tougher with, I would say, less organized, not less organized, but
okay.
the
Or maybe
apartment complexes, I mean, on the renters.
Or maybe just there's a property manager and have them
Correct. I mean, we could
make information available too.
We could send out, a note to the folks that we know are renting and say, if you have a new renter, please let us know, and we can send out a welcome packet to them. And it doesn't mean that what we're sending out now is a less than. It's just a matter of what do you want that to look like.
Right. No, I think too. Yeah. And then previous years too, we talked about the branding, and we're just seeing a lot more consistency in our communication. So, yeah, that's what I had for questions, and just things that kind of jumped out at me as far as.
So your numbers, your priority, sorry, Larry, your priority numbers are.
I didn't keep track of them. I know I aligned pretty close with what Mayor Johnson and Councilmember McKnight stated. So they had a lot of crossover, but there was 1 or 2 these that were different. But
when I'm looking at this, when I'm looking at 2 and 3, I like all of them. I think some of them just fit with other things besides number 8. We went through that already, and where that can kind of go along with our media communications. When I'm looking at 2 and 3, so we have things here related to biases, equity, inclusion, things like that. So, and we're also looking at the number 3, which says removing gender pronouns, which kind of goes along with what's already in 2. It's not written to say that, but it all kind of, to me, looks the same. It's kind of getting things kind of in line with where we're at. I did want to talk about the word equity, though, rather than equality. Is there a reason that we've chosen equity over equality when we are putting this out in this document?
It depends on how you define the terms. It depends on how you define equity and equality. I guess I need to understand that.
Well, there's some hot button issues around some of those terms right now. We know that, which is why we're talking about them, right? Which is what's coming up. So when I'm just looking at related to biases, equity, inclusion, education, and then we have removing the gendered pronouns and things like that. Is there something that we can use that combines 2 and 3 to talk about under a little bit bigger umbrella but maybe doesn't call out, exact words that may or may come in and out of fashion in the next 2 years, or may come in and out of what's important or what's a hot button at the same time.
Yeah, I guess I use equity because that's the language that cities have been using, the school district uses. I am not going to pretend to be the expert in that area. I don't see, and I would agree with your comments, or I agree with your comments related to they can be a hot button issue. But I think we're at a point where we haven't done any, and so we can certainly label it differently, but I guess I don't know enough about the subject matter to like say you should be doing this or that, and that's kind of maybe where we're all at, and that I guess I'm just kind of stumbling.
Yeah, Brent, I can help. So, Christy, in the world of like inclusion, diversity, and equity, it's I, D, and E, and equity is, or the E is equity. It's not. I'm sorry.
Equality. I understand
Equality.
that.
Yeah. So I mean,
I understand that.
I get the rub if folks don't understand it entirely of what it could mean, but in that space, the E is equity.
Okay. For myself, then, at the minimum, I'd like to see 2 and 3 combined into a little bit more overarching, just in general, rather than because removing gender pronoun is a really specific action. When we're talking about kind of the more higher level of that, we're going to be taking a look at some of these opportunities. I know we have training. Training can be part of it. But I guess that's just how I feel about those. Is that I think we can maybe do something that doesn't specifically pull out that detail.
That's a really good point, Christy, because
overall.
that's a really good point because removing the gendered pronouns, that's inclusion, right? So there you go. I think we're kind of all over the place, and we're going to be here forever if we take a half an hour on each topic. But did you guys, Glenn, did you go through and say your top 4?
I agree with Christy as far as combining 2 and 3. I want to know what post-COVID era is going to look like, not only with Casco Rec, but within the city of Carver and what we're going to be doing as a city. So that's kind of buzzing with me. 8 is like water under the bridge, so we don't have to go any further with that one. But I mean, 2 and 3. If we combine those, I mean, equity in the buzzword to me comes across as form of income equality and kind of outcome-based stuff. And I agree with Christy. I think equity should go, but it's the buzzword of the day. We can debate that word later, but I like to see 2 and 3. As far as hiring a marketing company, I don't know if they're hiring a marketing company or a media communications specialist. I'm kind of torn between bringing in a full-time person or a part-time or something for that marketing purpose. I'd rather focus on staffing for a financial planner more so than somebody for a communications specialist. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Go ahead, Brent.
You don't necessarily have to have 4. So if 2 or 3, or in some cases 5, rise to the top, that's fine. So what I have is kind of combine 2 and 3 and kind of make them fit together. So we can come back with that, and then 4 and 7. Is there any additional pieces? And I would say that part of these things, and I forgot which council member said it, but part of these items are kind of our tasks, and so some of these things we might end up kind of doing anyway. Part of the strategic plan is to share with the community what you is kind of advertising to them. What are the strategic initiatives? what is really important to the city council over the next 2 years so that you can communicate that. But, I can see Chad, Dan and I working together on, a refreshed two-page handout on water service in the city, just based on this conversation. So we wouldn't necessarily need it as a strategic initiative action plan to get it done. That conversation will influence our work. So with that said, I have 2, 3, 4, and 7. And I'd freshen this up and bring it back. Am I hearing that correctly?
Brent, I have a question. Is there a reason that you want to nail it or bring it down to just that few? I mean, I don't have a problem with more being on here if they're relevant. So is there a reason that you wanted to stick to the 3 to 4 that you mentioned?
Because we have 5 areas, and we have essentially, a year and a half or so to get these done before, the next council, and that could be all of you again, but just thinking about the workload and the ability to deliver on it. If we end up having, 25 action items, I just don't think we can deliver that for you as a team.
Okay. Could you repeat then the numbers that you were hearing?
I heard combining 2 and 3 into one action item. Number 4, which is related to the large event regulations, and 7, an analysis related to a media communication specialist. I would offer, we could include 8 and talk about that water report. That certainly is something that's on the minds of residents. Modified based on the council's discussion tonight, obviously.
And why was 1 not? I think we talked a little bit about 1, and that it was kind of important.
I actually think that 1 and 7 can be merged because you get the right communication specialist and they can throw together a welcome kit.
I agree with you.
Well, if I could just respond to that. So 7 is just an analysis of that position. 1 is a project that they could work on, so they're a little bit different in that regard.
I think I would still like to see 1 involved, though. I think that's a good idea to have
We
that.
could do that. I would just separate them as different action items. So combination of 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, and 1, and I'll revise and kind of refresh the language and then bring back. Is there any issues with that?
Nope.
So moving on to community development. Number 1, coordinate and present. Coordinate a presentation and discussion with the Carver County CDA to discuss affordable and life cycle housing. Specifically discuss the details and examples of community land trust programs. Hold a panel discussion with area developers to discuss the cost related to development, insights on building the $250,000 single family home, and ideas to diversify the city's housing choices. So that'd be similar to the Urban Land Institute, but we'd be doing it with kind of our own stakeholders. As a work session item, review sample building and design regulations for commercial and industrial buildings. Review and discuss sample ordinances, cost impact to regulations, and overall perspectives and approaches. Number 4, discuss and define commercial, industrial, and mixed zoning uses within the comprehensive plan. And Erin can kind of speak to this again. This was identified in her presentation. Seek to define them for application within the zoning ordinance and set expectations for the city's key commercial and industrial areas. Number 5, develop an action plan to meet the housing goals that are identified. And then 6, seek to remove jargon and complex language from the zoning ordinance in favor of plain language. And then 7 is the council ideas item.
The ones that I like from that list, and to be clear, I like them all, but I think the ones that rise to the top for me are 1, 3, 4, and 6.
I would
Okay.
concur with that. That's exactly what I had marked.
I have 5 marked, for a development action plan to meet housing goals. We've talked a lot about, the price of housing is going up, and it's not necessarily something we can always control, but we've had a few discussions, and I know that I've discussed it many times about, what it looks like for first-time homeowners to try and to come to Carver, and then having a housing stock that we have, I'll put it, not subsidized housing, but in an affordable range for maybe first-time homeowners. So that's what I read. Obviously, I wasn't at the session we talked about this, but if I've got that wrong, if I'm reading too much into that one, let me know. But to me, that's an important one as well, if I'm getting that right from that sentence. Anyone, was that right? Was that the intent of the sentence?
I mean, I think it would be just to jump in, it would be if you look at some of the previous ones, like 1 and 2, like if you have those discussions, like number 6 would be number 5 would be an opportunity to say, okay, we've received this information, we've thought about it, here's what we want to do, rather than just taking it and then sitting and saying, oh yeah, I remember when the CDA came in, it would be that intentional, dedicated next step to, once you have all the information related to that, say, okay, this is what we want to do and how we want to do it.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we're not really getting rid of them if we just keep combining them. I understand that, but does 5 then somewhat belong with number 2 as well? Or is that, are you saying that the scope of all of that might be more than can be done in the next year and a half to 2 years?
I think it's all probably relative. It's adding one here and there that isn't a lot, but when we start adding them up, they could be. So I guess I would reserve to like the end. If I guess I would suggest the council saying what they propose or what they would like to see, and then I would work with the department head team to represent this based on the council's objectives. I think it would probably be in the best interest of our process to just not consider the amount and start with the priorities. And then if we get to a point where we feel like it's too overwhelming, then we can have that discussion. But in hindsight, like I think it'd be better if I pulled back a little bit on trying to limit you. If you feel like it's a good idea, let's take out the ones that you like we have no interest in at this point, and then we'll bring back kind of the cream of the crop.
So, because if we're going to, for number 2, we're going to have these discussions, hopefully, and I'm talking on, development and our insights on building the single-family home. I mean, we want to do something with that information. So do we as a group then think that we should keep the action plan in there? Is that part of that, or do we see that as something else?
And for example, Chrissy, you could do 1, 2, and 5, but you could just rely completely on the county CDA. I know they have a housing specialist and an economic development specialist, and then combined with Aaron's expertise, after you get that information, then you can create your housing goals. Or if you wanted to add the developer perspective, you could add that as well. So there's different routes you could take to assemble that information.
I like 2 and I like 5 because to me one leads right into the other. I guess I'll let everyone else comment.
Well, I can comment as to number 2. Yeah, everybody wants affordable housing. Well, it's define affordable, and the cost of a 2x4 went from $1.71 to $6 a piece. So, and that was just the last 8 months. So the cost to develop is actually going through the roof, no pun intended. And so it's breaking down what a developer has into a house. That's it's all got to do with the cost of land and cost of materials. And then you throw labor in there, and it's tough to find anything for $250,000. It really is, unless it gets subsidized somewhere through number one, the CDA. So I'd like to have an action plan for some housing goals, but I don't know if the $250,000 amount is really something we should be focusing on. But I'd like to have a panel and just discuss with some developers what some of the governmental setbacks it would be. So I like 2, I like 4. 5 is pretty good for me, simply because we are going to have the whole life cycle housing that'll be coming as well. So those are kind of my priorities.
Joy, do you want to go? Oh, I'm sorry. I already called on you, right? Did you go for this one?
Yeah, I kind of concurred.
Okay.
I just want to make one point. I would prefer going after number 1 versus number 2. I think that we might get some more actionable ideas from the Carver County Community Development Agency versus area developers for a lot of the reasons that Glenn was just saying, right? Housing costs, material costs are going through the roof. That's something that we can't control. I'm not sure we can get something actionable about that. Whereas I think there might be some better opportunities for the Carver County CDA.
Thank you. Lori?
The same thoughts as Joy. As much as number 2 would be great educational, but to come out of it with some action plans, I put the other ones a higher priority, especially number 1.
Do you have a list of your other top ones, Lori?
I read it again. And just, I guess, like, big picture, just some really, high-level strategic. Number 6. Yeah.
Okay. Are we good with community development? Ready to move on?
Yep, I think I have what I need.
Okay.
Moving on to downtown development. Number 1, prepare an inventory of all commercial buildings in the downtown, identify vacant spaces, and initiate contact with property owners to develop strategies. Number 2, develop a plan and implement strategies for active use amenities in public spaces in the downtown. So examples could include outdoor ping pong, Scrabble board, chess, checkers, and so on. Number 3, integrate a public art strategy and initiatives as a responsibility of the HPC. 4, perform a use study, conduct a cost-benefit analysis, and seek out partnerships related to the future use of the church by the river. Number 5, request the Parks Commission develop a concept plan and cost structure that would redevelop Riverside Park as a hybrid active and passive use park, working to highlight the natural features and location of the park. Number 6, conduct a business climate survey with current business owners in the downtown as a means to identify opportunities and challenges facing business owners, develop an action plan based on those findings. Number 7, which as I'm reading it, is probably similar to number 2, add the sidewalk style seating in front of City Hall to promote sidewalk meetings, gathering of friends, table games, and so on. Number 8, develop a strategy and a possible incentive program to locate a coffee shop in the downtown. And number 9, prioritize the demolition of the public services garage as a means to spark a catalyst development project on that site.
All right. Lori, you want to go first? I feel like you're always going last.
Yeah. This time I'm taking notes. Number 4 and 5, I guess I would call them rank higher, but now I'm really looking at it too, like, how can we come out of it with some action items, so that we would see some progress, or have a good understanding of what the options are, over the next 2 years.
Okay, is that it? Okay. Glenn?
Well, let me hold off just for a second, I'll come back.
Okay, Joy? Oh, sorry, Christy, I didn't see you were off mute. But let's still go through.
I also would like to see 4 and 5 for sure. I guess, and I apologize, I'm single parenting and I had to run out for a second, but number 9, Brent, was that about prioritizing how we can move out of the public services garage? I see the word demolition, and I'm not sure that I understood that, but I know that we talked about trying to find space for the public works so that we could move out of that facility and make it available for redevelopment, whatever that means.
Right. So when I wrote that, I think for me, it would be a communication to residents that it's clearly the intention of the council to relocate that storage space.
Okay.
Based on the discussion that I at least heard during the goal setting session, although like there is a plan for the use of the site related in the parks plan related to a splash pad, I didn't necessarily hear like unanimity like that will be the only thing considered.
Right. Okay, so I would like to add 9, so 4, 5, and 9, because I think we should prioritize figuring out how to get out of that space so it can be redeveloped, whatever that means.
Thank you, Joy. Christy?
Sure, I agree with number 9. I think that is a great one to have in here. I have a couple of questions and I guess comments too. So number 5, the concept plan and cost structure for Riverside Park. We have been talking about the fact of the erosion down there and how many years we might have left before we can even get back there anymore. I'm not sure, depending on cost, that doing some redevelopment down at Riverside Park is maybe in our best interest at this point in time, as we don't know, like I said, how long we're going to have access to that park with the amount of erosion and how quickly it's been happening. So for me, number 5 doesn't hold a high priority for me at all, just because of those reasons. For the church, for number 4, for the church by the river, if we want to explore other partnerships, I would like to expand that to, I don't think we have to just look at partnerships. We could look at some kind of a historical center or things like that. We have a lot of people who walk around downtown, and certainly other places have volunteers who come in and oversee those on the weekends. I know that we have the AA group right now who rents it out, but that's not forever. They don't have to have it forever. We're not indebted to them to have them there. I appreciate they have the space for now, but if we find another different use for it, I'm sure we'll be able to find somewhere else. So I just when I'm looking at that one, I think we might have, being in a city building, we may be able to find a partnership that makes sense, or we may be able to come up with some ideas on our own that are right for just Carver on its own. Where was I looking here? The plan for the outdoor ping pong tables, Scrabble boards, chess. Can somebody tell me a little bit more about that one? I don't know whose idea that was. Just so I have a little bit better vision.
Yeah, there are threads that Aaron had within it, but it depends on you've traveled a bunch of different places. You'll oftentimes find, like, for example, I was out in Seattle like 5 years ago. They'll have a ping pong table that's made to be outside, and somebody could just bring their paddles and ping pong balls and play outside. Or there's large Scrabble boards, or if sometimes you'll have Jenga, or there'll be a big Scrabble board with tiles you could rent from a city hall, or like the sidewalk sitting in front of City Hall. If maybe a couple of those tables had kind of built-in checker chessboards on them, just things that you can do to be more active rather than just kind of come downtown and sit on a bench.
Okay, thanks. I understand what you're saying now. I just had this vision of like Scrabble pieces being left out there, like, it's just flung all over the park now, so, okay, thank you. The one that I love and dislike at the same time is number 8. I want a coffee shop in the worst way, and I want it down here so I can walk to it. However, to find an incentivizing program for a specific business seems a little bit narrow for me. Because why, I mean, a different type of business would come in and say, well, why would you incentivize them but not my business? So like I said, as much as I want the coffee shop, I feel that one is a little bit off balance with being able to consider other businesses, and then possibly somebody could come in and say we would give to one, but we didn't to another. So I would prefer that 8 wasn't in this list. And then, yeah, and like I said, number 5 is kind of another sticky one for me. And if the group as a whole feels really passionate about it, that's great. I mean, we certainly can look at the numbers. We don't have to do anything if it comes in too high, but it does worry me a little bit about putting some more money into Riverside when we don't know what's going to happen. That's all I have, Courtney.
Thanks. So let's see. Christy, I think you talked about the coffee shop. You know, we did put together an RFP for where Carver Ridge is now, being really specific in what we wanted there. So I don't know that, you know, saying that we would want a coffee shop or a restaurant that had an espresso machine is necessarily too narrow or really going into uncharted waters. The ones that I have are 5, 7, 8, and 9. You have a really good point, Christy, about Riverside Park. I don't think it's going to wash away in our lifetimes. And I think, I don't know if you had a chance to look through, I forgot whose idea that was, Brent's PowerPoint presentation, whoever's it was, but the idea was to have it have more of a natural space. And then the conversation that ensued when we were talking about that was the hours upon hours upon hours over the course of the summer that Public Services spends mowing that lawn down there. So if there was larger, wilder grasses, wilder areas with specific trails kind of mowed through them, that would really help, probably to a large extent with some of the erosion, and then also with the maintenance needs of that park. So I think it would kind of help in some of the areas where your concerns are. So that's it. It was 5, 7, 8, and 9 for me.
I have 4, 5, 6, and 9.
Right.
If I'm hearing a lot of 5s, 9s, and 4s. Or I have three people that said 4. I'm not clear on Lori. Oh, she did 4, I think. You wanna
Yeah,
cover?
yep, I put 4 as one of mine, and then, just to give a little background on that, Christy, in our, sessions for the strategic planning, I was a little shocked with how much it costs to maintain it, so that was also part of, wanting to look at it, as like a, or just, kind of taking a closer look at it.
That's related to the church by the river, correct, Lori?
Yeah, yes, yep, so number 4, yep, for Church by the River.
Sure, and I'm all for taking a look at it. I just want to take a big look at it. That's not just saying we're going to partnership out with somebody else. Let's take a look at our own and see what we can do also. So let's get all the information from all the facets we can look at. So 4, sorry, Brent, I was just going to say 4 is good for me. 5, if we want to take a look at it, that's great. I don't necessarily agree completely, Courtney, with the erosion, with your view on the erosion aspects, but there's nothing wrong with taking a look at it and seeing what comes up. We can make choices on that later. And then I do think number 9 is important to me also. The only one that I'm not on board with is number 8. As much as I would love to have some more espresso.
So 4, 5, and 9.
Yes, if you need more than my 9.
And moving on to infrastructure development. Develop a corridor plan for County Road 40 that includes a trail system into the downtown. The corridor should be established prior to or in coordination with the Carver County turnback negotiations. Develop a budget and recommended timeline for recoding of the Carver water tower north of 212, so the one next to Fleet Farm. The plan would include various options and pricing to recoat the tower along with decorative elements reviewed by the city when the water tower recoding is recommended. Number 3, bring about a process of visual quality decision-making in every project opportunity. What do we want? So we kind of get into what do we want each job to look like, talking about aesthetic standards, utilizing standard lighting, river rock themes, colors, etc. Number 4, as projects occur during planning, consider if opportunities exist to explore new technologies or the latest advancements in automation of infrastructure. 5, progress on the certified levy project, so complete preliminary design, define project costs, and the progress of funding for the project, which is a pretty big to do. I've actually that might be a task that kind of happens on its own, but part of it is, again, what do you want to share with the public and other stakeholders? And number 6, provide an opportunity for the city council to review strategies for future mass transit, and the future use of Carver Station.
All right. Glenn, go ahead. Oh, sorry, if you need more time, I just saw you were off mute.
Well, give me a minute.
Okay. Who's ready? I'm ready. Okay. Let's see. The ones that I jotted down were 2, 3, 5, and 6. I think everybody here knows how strongly I feel about the certified levy project. Enough said. I also think that number 6 is really, really important. I can see the end of our funding for the transit station coming up, and I know that we've got to make a decision on that sooner rather than later. So I want to definitely make sure that those are taken care of. I could honestly say, just those 2 if we had to whittle it down to just 2, but I also like both 2 and 3. 2, I think we're going to have to come up with a plan for that water tower regardless of if we make it exceptional or if we just make it the kind of standard paint job. And then I also like the idea of having consistency and a look to Carver that we take a look at and consider when we see projects coming to town. Who's ready now? Go ahead, Joy.
I'll go. Okay, so on number 1, County Road 40, is the timeline, do we think, for turn back outside of our strategic plan action horizon?
No, it's right in the middle, frankly.
Okay, then I would like to put number 1 in, but I also agree with Courtney on number 6 for sure, because I think those are pending for us. Other than that, those were kind of my 2 high priorities. I did want to ask a question because I'm not sure I saw it in all of these lists. Was talking about parks, and I know we talked about what parks in our master plan might come next, and what some of the issues or challenges are for each of those sites. Kind of what do we got to do before we can really go after that one? And I was wondering if we could add some way of setting prioritization for parks, or kind of just understanding what the priorities might be based upon what we think we can get done before we can execute those parks, whether it's land acquisition or dealing with whatever, moving public works, whatever.
Yeah, you could certainly add that.
Okay, those were my three then.
It's a good ad, Joy. Thank you. Lori, you want to go?
Yeah, I am at, in order priority 5, 3, and 2.
Final answer?
Yeah, do you want me to comment? Some of the
Yes.
things, I think, as they're brought to us, we'll need to, either provide staff with direction or, take action. But I want these ones, the 5, 3, and 2, not lose sight of it and, really start coming up with some, tangible, tasks, to get towards those goals.
All right. Christy?
For me, it's going to be 1, 5, and 6. I feel really strongly about number 1. Over my tenure here in different roles with the city, I've been hearing about the lack of access from the Bluffs neighborhood. I would just call the Bluffs neighborhood that direction to be able to get safely into downtown. And as a city, we've worked very hard on trying to create our trail connections and including, retrofitting some in some older areas, including Lions Park, the one that comes down to 6th Street. So I don't want to leave out an entire section of the city. So to me, I feel really strongly about 1 and being able to move bike traffic a little bit easier and more safely along County Road 40. 5 and 6, I think they've been kind of expanded upon by everybody else so far, so I will just stop there. But I did want to just put this as number 1.
Thank you, Christy. Glenn?
Number 1 is priority type 1. Simply just for the connectivity with the Bluffs, and then the connectivity to Chaska and everything east of here. So that to me is probably my highest priority. 5 and 6. I'm curious as to the future of mass affairs. It's been a hit that's taken the last year and a half. Before COVID, it was going up and up, and it's going to be interesting how that recovers, if it does recover. So I would like to have that conversation. And then 5, of course, the certified levy project. So 1, 6, and 5 are my priorities in order. All I got.
Are you good on that, Brent?
Yeah, that might take some additional work when you see the results, because there's a little bit of a hodgepodge in there, but.
I have a question, Chad. Is Chad on?
Yeah, go ahead.
Question about water tower.
Yes.
Do we have a light center of the thing that's on there right now?
We're noticing a few issues with it, and I think it's been, about 10 years that's been up? So probably about that 10 to 15 year range for coating, exterior coating.
For another 10 years, or?
10 to 15 total.
Got it. So I jumped up on the priority, is what you're telling me.
Yes.
Okay. All right. You can add that one as my 4th option, Brent.
Okay to move on?
Yep.
Yep.
Then our last is organizational development. So number 1, prepare costs and a position description for a new finance director position that would be considered with the 2022 budget. Number 2, pending the retirement of the city attorney, seek guidance and facilitate a work session related to best practices for selecting a city attorney. Just kind of want to, note again for the council, the city attorney and city manager are the 2 positions appointed by the city council. Number 3, prepare a report to review costs and benefits associated with adding an electric vehicle to the city's fleet. Number 4, develop a needs assessment and strategy for information technology support, so IT, computers, etc. Seek out employee input and develop strategies for implementing flexible scheduling while providing high-level service. 6, conduct an employee survey to measure organizational culture and identify opportunities for growth and development. Number 7, develop a funding strategy to implement staffing needs in fire and communications while being sensitive to budget constraints. And number 8, provide an overview of the city's standing and progress within the Green Step Cities program.
Christy, you want to go first on this one?
Sure. For me, number 1 is important. Obviously, Kathy has been very forthcoming with us about her retirement dates, so I think number 1 and how we define that position going forward is going to be something that's important. I'm going to jump here to number 6. We talked during review time about having a little bit more feedback maybe from our employees about the workplace. I think number 6 makes good sense. We want to keep the employees we have and make the best place we can for everyone to work. I have a question for number 2. So pending the retirement of the city attorney, would we not do this anyways, Brent? Does it necessarily need to be in the strategic plan?
Yep, this would be an item that, would be considered a task, just identifying it because it's not very often that you have to do that type of work.
Okay. I guess I like all of them. 1 and 6 are my top. I do like number 4. I guess I don't know exactly from staff if we're struggling in that area, and I'm not sure what the explanation was on that one, but IT can be very important, and that's not everybody's forte. So if staff feels that that's something that's important, then I can have number 4 be on there as well. Otherwise, those are the only ones that have any strong feelings about. The other ones are great too.
Thanks. Thanks, Christy. Glenn?
Number 1, I believe everybody that was at the strategic planning session agreed that finance director position is of number 1 importance across the board. Number 2 would be, yes, it is coming down the pipe that we will be replacing our secretary. So not only is it on the strategic planning, but we need to, just understand how the whole process works with that. So I'm with 1 and 2. Number 4, I believe that we need to have technology within the city and having the right software and everything. And number 6, I like to keep employees happy. Those are my 4 priorities in the organizational development chart.
What was the last one you said, Glenn?
Yep.
What was the last one you said?
6.
6, okay. Thank you. Joy?
Definitely, I agree. Number 1, number 2 are coming. Number 4, especially, I think Vicki did a good job of outlining some next steps that could be taken with contracts coming up for renewal and other opportunities we've seen to integrate our software better across some of our platforms to be efficient. I think are must-dos, right? I think also it was hard for me to not circle everything on this list, but number 3, I think Erin made a good case for, we have building permits exploding and other permits exploding, and there's a lot of grant money out there for adding electrical vehicles to city fleets, and that could justify a vehicle for our building inspector staff. So I think that's also important. I know, Personally, I know we became part of Green Step Cities. I'd like to see us, set where we are today, where we have gotten to, where we think we can get to, and establish some goals around that. I realize we may not have a lot of the bandwidth right now, but I'd still like that to be on our list of strategic things to get to. Maybe if we can add intern capabilities to help us with that in the future or something like that. Yeah, again, it was hard not to circle everything
Right.
on this list.
Thanks, Joy. Lori?
I almost go right down the list as far as priority. Definitely 1, then 2. The exception being 3 and 8, but otherwise, after 1 and 2, it would be 4. So yeah, pretty much down the list. 4, 3, and 8. Is this the only area where we have something that we might tie to action steps related to green step cities? I didn't see it at the other slide. Did I overlook seeing it on another slide?
No, the electric vehicle was a really specific discussion point during the strategic session, so I added that, but
so with those,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
so with my exception and kind of the number, with 3 and 8, I would like one of those included. Just again, don't want to lose sight of something that we should do some long-term planning for that we for this strategy sessions. That's my direction that I would give.
The ones that I liked were 1, 2, 5, and 7. I think we talked about recognizing that as great as all of our city employees are, we're going to see some turnover. And, Christy, for your benefit, when we were in the room doing the strategic planning session, we took a look, and potentially the only person who's going to be in his first and only job they've ever had until they retire would be Callie. That's just not the model of these days, to spend 35 or 40 years in one single job like my dad did before he retired. I think that's a little bit of an outdated model. Folks grow in their careers. That said, and with that recognition, I want folks to really enjoy their time here while they're here at the City of Carver. And I think if we figure out kind of the creature comforts of that equation and figuring out, can public services, can we make it work where the folks there work 4/10s? Can we do, half-day Fridays, summer hours? Can we continue to encourage folks or allow folks to work from home regardless of if we're in a global pandemic or not? Kind of figuring out those kinds of things. And then I think I had, the last one is 7. You guys know how strongly I feel about figuring out a communications solution for the city, and I think we can tie absolutely everything that we've spent the last hour and a half talking about back to communications in one way or the other. And also, the fire chief position. Fire department has been busy. I went and visited with Callie a couple of weeks ago, and they are, in terms of number of calls and number of runs, they are blowing through last year's numbers. And I just think it's really important that we figured that out. I think we're lucky with Callie, but I don't want to wear him out while he's trying to live in this world of working a full-time job and then having a full-time, essentially, side gig. That's it for me.
Okay. Well, I will take the notes that I have from tonight and prepare kind of what I would call a final draft action plan to bring to your next work session. And if you'd sign off on that, then we'll bring to the following regular meeting of the council to formally adopt, and then we'll be on our way.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, Brent. I think we have time for city manager's report.
I just wanted to check in with the council on one that's a relatively minor thing, but it might be something that the council might be contacted on. I just had a phone conversation with a resident just prior to the work session and took a position that they were struggling with, and so I just wanted to make sure that the council concurred. But we had a group of adolescents that have been frequenting the city hall and amongst other things, I'll say they were bringing in their skateboards and scooters into the space and using them. And I believe the issue has been rectified, but I shared with the resident or the parent in this instance that we weren't going to allow skateboards and scooters to be brought into the building, even the vestibule. I compromised that if they needed to use the bathroom rather than leaving their skateboard outside, that they could put the skateboard in a backpack and then go to the bathroom and then go back out. But the vestibule could be used during after hours purposes if they're waiting for a ride and standing up in the vestibule. The issue that we've been having is there's been smoking in the vestibule. There's been a food fight. They were kind of laying and sitting, and so we are not intending for that space to be a hangout. That people use it to get into the building for meetings. It's a drop box for your utility bills. But just to get another set of, or a group set of eyes on this, just wanted to make sure that the council concurred with our logic on this.
I'm pretty sure I concur. Am I correct in a parent called and wanted to debate having scooters in the lobby? Or the vestibule?
Yeah, they were.
Okay,
They had a concern that if they leave them outside, that they would be stolen. So.
Okay, no, I support you 100%, Brent. I think, these are the kids who, like you said, have been smoking in the vestibule, have been leaving trash and wrappers. There's other things that these kids have been involved with. No, absolutely not. I will oftentimes pay my water bill on nights or weekends and will drop that off. If I saw 3 teenagers, hanging out in the lobby, I can't imagine that that's conducive to doing business at City Hall. I support you in that.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Yes.
Then the only other item, and just giving you a little bit of a preview. I know there's some reach outs to at least one council member related to the trail being signed as closed from Cherry Circle to Ironwood this morning, and so we've been working on that for much of the day, and Dan's going to have an update on that, and then just a Jonathan Carver Parkway construction project update at the regular meeting.
All right. That we also have time for council requests, which is not to be confused for council member communications, but we haven't done this for a while. So just going around the horn. Glenn, you are off mute. Do you want to go first?
Don't have anything other than Brent did mention that the doggy stations are ordered. Can't wait to get those out.
Lori, requests?
I hope this is the form to ask. So my request is the question of, are there topics that we plan to have on the agenda for upcoming work sessions, or, that's.
So I would say a lot of it will be based on the strategic plan initiated. So all the items that you see
Okay.
here will be, I can see, frankly, almost all of these get to work session at some point, and then I know that it just seems like we finished the 2021 budget, but we're about 2 months away from the 2022 budget, so we have more than enough items. So the combination of budget and the strategic plan, action plan items are going to take up work session agendas through the balance of the year.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful.
All right. Christy, requests?
Brent, we had talked about sending letters out to the historic properties in town for building, getting ready for the season. Have those been sent yet?
No, I have there was a draft prepared, but one of the items I mentioned to the council, I'm kind of taking over the admin of that commission, and I have a draft prepared that's ready to send. I just want to share it with the HPC at their meeting on Tuesday, and then my plan would be to send it out right after they have a chance to look at it and comment. If there's any important information they think needs to be added, since it's my first time doing it, I want to make sure it meets their expectations.
Okay, thanks.
Joy, council requests?
No, I have no council requests.
Nor do I. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
A motion by Councilmember Henry
I'll second.
and a second by Councilmember Sayer. Any further discussion? Could the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Henry.
Aye, Brian Henry.
Councilmember Mock.
Hi, Christy Mock.
Councilmember Sayer.
I, Lori Sayer.
Councilmember McKnight.
Hi, Joy McKnight.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, Courtney Johnson. All right, motion passes. We are adjourned. We'll see you all in